Normally when it comes to rebooting something, whether it is a film series, a game series, or a computer, there is always the chance of absolute disaster, especially if you're installing a new version of Windows. And yet, there is, from time to time, a glimmer of hope, a sign that the reboot, while it may not surpass the original, it could at least be good in its own right. So these are the top 7 best game reboots. Situations in which a company decided, you know what, remember that old game we used to have? Let's take it apart, make it anew with new characters, new settings, new stories, new everything, and, well, call it the same thing, because confusing people is always fun. Just to be clear, I am referring specifically to reboots of series, not different games launched under the same name. So that's why Prey will not be here, because Prey, the one we just got, is actually a System Shock homage that was conceived long before it got the name Prey and became a part of that, not part of our franchise, it's its own thing, it's a different game. God damn me, Bethesda and your dumb marketing. That being said, let's get started with number 7, Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. Now, if you're confused about which reboot of Alone in the Dark this is, it's the first reboot, not the one slightly somewhat based on the movie that was horrible, which in its own right had okay bits. The fire propagation in that game was genius, and the way the inventory worked was actually probably something that could have worked in VR better than it did normally. It had its things. I'm of course not in any way referring to the last Alone in the Dark game, which was an absolute cash grab made by a financially and creatively bankrupt company that should die right now called Atari. No, it's the first reboot, the one from around 2001, The New Nightmare. It's a reboot created in a time when Silent Hill and Resident Evil were kings of the world. Yet this game decided to say, hey, you know what? You didn't make that. This is our legacy. This is the legacy of a series of games that look so horrid, so abominably ugly, that they managed to convey horror with 5 polygons. Most creatures were made out of 5 polygons, 10 at best, and they looked downright terrifying. Fill your pants, run for the hills, terrifying. And The New Nightmare tried its best to do the same, with better graphics of course, somewhat better controls, and still the same kind of way of telling a story via 2 characters, which is again something that Resident Evil didn't invent. They managed to combine the classic horror survival kind of gameplay with new terrors, with new controls, with new annoying puzzles that made no sense but still okayish. And while it didn't blow the socks off people, it didn't usher in a new age of success for Alone in the Dark, it was still memorable. You also got to kill gods with spears. I think it was a god. I think it was Cthulhu. Number 6, Doom. Now, there's one small problem here. I've not actually played the full version of Doom, just a demo, so I'm not sure if it's a complete reboot or if it is still tied to the story of the old ones, because it sort of looks like it's still tied to the story of the old ones on account of you sort of wake up in a sarcophagus because you were a prisoner in hell, so it's assumed you did some things that hell was really mad about. But it's called Doom, not Doom 4, not Doom 3, this time we're sorry that we tried to be a System Shock knockoff, not Doom, okay, we remember why Doom was actually good. It's just called Doom, so at least on a technical basis and because of Bethesda's dumb marketing, I'm gonna call this a reboot. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I mean, it's Doom. You've probably seen it. You've probably played it. It's awesome. They just launched a Switch version that runs at 1612p when docked, on settings lower than PC, and 5 something p when undocked in portable mode. But still, it's a game where you punch monsters, kick demons in the asphalt, because there's asphalt on Mars, chainsaw your way to greatness, and for the most part, are extremely upset about everything. And it's glorious. It's absolutely glorious. Now I'm just curious what happens when they launch the inevitable sequel. Will they call it Doom 2 or Doomer, Doom 5, Doom Icon of Sin Edition. I don't know. Bethesda has dumb marketing. Number 5, Need for Speed Underground. Now, hear me out. Need for Speed had a resurgence at one point. Well, technically it had it had multiple ones, but I'm gonna talk about the ones up to this point. There was the first game that was a simulator, then it changed into an arcade racer, so you could call that a reboot, but it went from 1 to 2, so it's sort of okay. Then it went into a more simulator kind of affair with 5. The 4 had a bit of simulator in it too, but 5 was getting closer to that. It was kind of a historic kind of game, but still, it wasn't a complete reboot. Then it had High Stakes 2, which was the first one made by Black Box. It was still in the vein of the previous games up to a point. And then you had Underground, and most importantly Underground 2. They were like nothing before. These were games focused on a certain type of racing, on a certain style of racing, on a certain mood, a certain atmosphere, just one time of day at night. I mean, it was its own thing. It rekindled the series, rebooted it. It grabbed onto the Fast and Furious underground racing, the illegal type things that was all the rage back then, and brought it to fruition. The greatness, and especially Underground 2. I'm counting them both as a reboot of the series, as an ongoing reinvention of it, because Underground 2 brought the open world aspect, but the first one also brought the excessive customization of your car. It is a reboot, at least for me, in my eyes. It changed the game and how it was played, how it was perceived, and our expectations of it. And that is what a good reboot does. Though technically it wouldn't be a reboot. I mean, it's a car game, it's a racing game, it doesn't really have continuity in terms of a narrative, though it does have in terms of style, and that's what I'm basing my idea of putting this as a reboot here, on the style, on the way it's presented to you, on how you interact with car culture as opposed to how you did in the previous games. Number 4, Double Dragon Neo. Now, I'm gonna get into two things that this game didn't really live up to. You wouldn't be hitting people in the face with your knee. I mean, grabbing them by the head and repeatedly hitting them in the face with your knee, or just hitting them in the face with the back of your head if they had you grappled. But in every other way, this was a blast to play. It was enjoyment, fulfillment. It was greatness. It was fun. It poked fun at itself, at its years and years of Marion being kidnapped and ninjas and the inherent stupidity in most of the series. It made fun of things, but it still respected it. Apart from the end boss. The end boss was Skeletor for some reason, and not the actual Skeletor, the parody Skeletor. I thought that was kind of odd. I mean, the bosses in the previous games, like the Shadow, what was his name, that guy seemed kind of imposing at first. So maybe it was a bit too tongue-in-cheek, a bit too comically and not violent enough, but it was so fun to play. And honestly, were there ever a company that I wished had made a Ninja Turtles game, it would have been WayForward. Older games tend to be magnificent, and they have brawlers down to a T. Number 3, Mortal Kombat, I guess 9? Now this game sometimes is sold or seen without a name, so it is a reboot in the sense of naming, at least sometimes, some places, but it's also called 9, even so it is a reboot of the series. The whole idea of it is that everything is wiped away clean and starts anew, and it is magnificent, not just in the mechanics and the way it modernizes the series, and it actually simplifies it a bit as opposed to the PlayStation 2 era where you had so many different fighting styles and so many different things. To a point I wish they had kept some of that, but even in the simplified version, it's still a very good fighting game. But what really blew my socks off, and I never expected to say this has a great story. It's the fighting game that you play for the story. It is the fighting game with the best storytelling I've ever played. And it is one that does embrace its stupid side, like Johnny Cage trying to save Sonya Blade from getting beat up by some, I think it was Baraka, by beating her up first. It's stupid. Still, the game is fantastic. Again, because of the story, it takes everything back to the beginning. Time travel, foretellings of future, it's explained quite easily why everything is back at the beginning with the first tournament, with the first fight against Shang Tsung, and then it goes through all of them, most of them. It goes through Mortal Kombat 1, through Mortal Kombat 2, it goes through Mortal Kombat 3, it hints at Mortal Kombat 4. I have no clue what the story was for the ones that were only on PlayStation 2, just that Liu Kang was dead for some time, but that's not relevant. This game does justice to the original trilogy. It is magnificent. It's how you should be introduced to the franchise. It is a reboot, and a kind of the continuity being completely new because of it. If Capcom ever gets their act together and makes a proper Street Fighter game, not what we got with 5's release version, they should make it like this. Street Fighter is already so goddamn convoluted, you cannot make heads or tails of it. Go back, erase everything, give people a story, give people good gameplay, give people a chance to experience everything anew. And I mean, Street Fighter is at its 10th game already. Yeah, I know it's just 5, but it's not even the 10th one, it's the bajillionth one. They've had so many versions of it. I think more than Mortal Kombat did. Number 2, Tomb Raider Legend. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not placing the 2013 Tomb Raider remake that's just Tomb Raider here, it's because that game was horrible. It was a cover shooter sold to us as a Tomb Raider game, which it wasn't. It had annoying characters, stupidity up the wazoo, and basically no charm to it, and also a fetish for Lara Croft squeezing through things, and ample amounts of murder. Whereas Tomb Raider Legend was a superb reboot. It changed Lara Croft's origin story. She was now a survivor of a plane crash in which her mother died, or at least it's presumed that she died. But did she? Did she? According to Lara, she didn't. She vanished through a mysterious portal. Her father has spent his entire life trying to fight her again, and now she's trying to as well. She's driven by one obsession: to redeem her past mistake, to get back the mother that she loved. She has motivation, she has drive, she has attitude. She is the coolest person on the goddamn planet. The first scene you see her in, well, when she's grown up, I mean, she's jumping around the cliffside in Peru, basically scaring the ever-loving crap out of everybody watching from back home. And she does it with a stiff upper lip, with that Croft charm. Doesn't scream, doesn't whine, doesn't cry because she killed a deer, but has no problem putting down hundreds of people. She knows who she is, she knows what to do, she is good at it. She basically doesn't need you to be there, honestly. You're not there to help Lara Croft achieve her goal, you're there as a witness to her excellence. And the game is quite good. The combat was fine, it didn't rely on covers, it relied more on you dodging around, jumping, doing acrobatics. Oh my god, the acrobatics you could do in this game. I would spend hours, no joke, just running around Croft Manor, down the corridors, seeing what kind of acrobatics I could do. Hand jumps, handstands, no hand front flips, double jumps. You could do so many things. You had a grappling hook to swing on, to grab onto things, to solve puzzles in interesting new ways. Yeah, you did have QTE events in some scenes, but they weren't overplayed. To be honest, the best one of this reboot series that dealt with QTEs was Underworld. It just took them out and slowed down time and let you actually play in that critical time, and it was a reboot that still paid respect to the original material. It didn't completely forsake it, because the next game in the series was a complete remake of Tomb Raider 1, all within the same continuity. And Underworld, it was a continuation of both. It merged everything together, creating one whole story. And speaking of story, Legend had a good one, with great characters, good motivation. It just felt right. And all the hocus pocus, all the mystical mumbo jumbo, it felt, well, I wouldn't say real, it felt plausible, it felt believable, it fit, it didn't have stupid things in it. And that's kind of rare, considering, you know, the other one. And the number one best reboot is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. I don't think it's too much of a mystery what this is gonna be. Sands of Time is a phenomenal game. It is superb. it is majestic, it is excellent. It takes the core concept of the cinematic platformer, puts it in third person, does it better than Prince of Persia 3D, adds better storytelling, it adds atmosphere, it adds a combat system that not only allows you to kill enemies in different and interesting ways, but also melds everything together with the Dagger of Time, with the ability to manipulate time in a way that I don't believe many games had it up until that point. Well, kind of Mech Knight's other game had, the Last Express, but it wasn't in this kind of way. It is a masterpiece of game design, it is a masterpiece of art, it is a magnificent game, and it's without a doubt the best reboot ever made. It's one of the best games ever made. Sure, camera controls are a bit horrible, on account of if you walk, you cannot move the camera around, which is annoying on PC, and I kind of, you'd expect to be able to do that. And there is the odd occasion where you're trying to jump in one direction and the prince says, nope, I'm gonna suicide myself, but at least you have the Dagger of Time, unless it runs out of sand about a half a second before you grab back to the ledge again. In that case, you kind of wish the game had a save feature, an actual one, but you can absolutely cheat and get infinite sand and stuff, so there's really not much of a problem. What I'm getting at is, it's a phenomenal game. So, have I missed any reboots that you really liked? Was one of them Shadow Warrior? Because I didn't actually miss it, I just kind of, well, to be honest, I found the main character's voice kind of annoying. The old original character's voice was kind of racist, but at least was funny. This guy was just kind of like annoying. It didn't feel like this was a Lo Wang. It felt like this was some guy. Still, it was a good game, and it does deserve a mention in this show. So let me know what other reboots I have missed. Goodbye.